Welcome to episode 170 of the Necronama.com. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now. And not only do I have nards, but I'm a virgin.
And I am Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of the podcast. And again, we can have a final girl all we want, but can we at least let the one black guy in the movie live? Can we just have that happen?
I legitimately did not know he was going to die. And I was so stunned. Like, I was sitting there, like, expecting him to crawl out the other side or something. And I'm like, oh, my God, they really killed him. What the fuck?
Again, I forget every time I watch this movie. I forget that the one black detective, the one black person in the movie dies.
It's the only black guy in town.
Racism.
That's right.
That place became a sundown town overnight. No pun intended.
Oh,
holy
man.
Shit.
How'd you get me to laugh at that? Jesus. This is why
And don't anyone say the mummy technically counts. No, the mummy does not count as the other black person in the movie. Okay, because it was played by a white guy. Anyway. So if anything, it was mummy face, bandage face. I don't know. What would we call it at that point?
Band-Aid breath. So I know you didn't get to go to Salt Lake FanX and you were missed, and I was sad that you weren't there. I have to share this story.
I missed going because I love going to Salt Lake, but the cards did not align this year. Maybe next year.
Maybe. But one of our panels that we did. Well, first we did Horror Authors Against Humanity. And it was just Cards Against Humanity, except me and Vincent V. Cava made the cards. So they were way more offensive than normal Cards Against Humanity. So, we had some gems in there, like using Chucky as a fleshlight.
Oh my God.
But what else did we have? There was one that was playing Human Centipede with Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Because there's just no way to win that shit, no matter who you are.
And you're in the middle no matter what.
And then our good buddy Michael Brent Collins was just an ace host. He had never played Cards Against Humanity before, apparently. And he knew it was offensive, and he knew that Vince and I made the cards, and he was still a real sport and really came through. I was truly impressed. If anyone's ever deserved to walk away from a panel with me, it was Michael Brent, and he came through with flying colors. But we had these kids up front, and they were probably like 10. And so I'm giving like hey, this isn't safe for work. Good thing we're not at work, trying to like make jokes, but also kind of like being, hey, get your fucking kids out of our panel, And they're front row. Okay, that's important here. These kids heckled us the entire panel. It was fucking amazing, but also like super awkward and off-putting. So like we have cards like cunnilingus and like, Michael Brent's like, well, if you don't know how to read that, then you don't need to know what it is. And then this kid up front, he's like, where are the titties at? And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm trying really hard to just no sell this and just move on, but it was fucking impossible. And like, you could tell the entire crowd was like, why are these kids here? So that's how we started the weekend. That was day one. And then we ended the weekend like literally I was up top watching the exhibition hall dump, right? Mm-hmm. They get like 100,000 people. So I'm just watching everybody literally leave there and go out the front doors, and our panel's coming up in like a half an hour. And I'm like, well, nobody's coming to kill Mary Shag Universal Monsters, I guess. And then we got there, and it was mostly filled still, and it was the best crowd I've had all year long. They psychotically loved the panel. We switched it up a bit, so instead of giving people 3 Universal Monsters and making them pick Kill, Mary, or Shag, we just went one by one. So like we said, like Dracula, and then people got in line, and they would make a case for why they would fuck Dracula or marry him or kill him, right? Except this audience almost never chose kill, or marry. No, this was a whole group of monster fuckers. That's all this panel was. Everybody was like, oh, well, I'd kill Dracula because of this or this. Or, I mean, I'd fuck Dracula because of this or this. And this one lady made my weekend. She stands up and she goes, I'd fuck Dracula because he'd go down on me when I have my period.
God damn it. I knew that was coming.
I fell out of my fucking chair, man. It was the best moment. I loved it so much. and everything was like that. Like somebody asked me about Gilman, so I said, you know, I'd make him blow me in a pool because he could do it for hours without coming up for air.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can last for hours. But anyway, so yeah, it was an amazing panel. But most of all, I just wanted to say thank you as always, Salt Lake, and we can't wait to come back again. I really thought we were going to get kicked out because we were so over the edge on this, but they immediately ran up to us and wanted us to come back next year. So guess we're good to go. But yeah, so then coming back to watch Monster Squad after that panel, I got to tell you, it completely changed my view of this movie because every single scene I was watching, like lines from that panel were like running through my head that people said, and I was like, stop, I'm trying to watch this kids movie. What the fuck, man? So it was a giant mess, but you know, I enjoyed the movie.
Doesn't sound like a mess to me. It sounds like a party.
Yeah, pretty much. When did you last watch this before this viewing?
Probably last year. I mean, with streaming, so many things are more readily available. So I'm pretty sure I watched it last year, and I honestly thought I had my kid watch it before when I'd watched it. Maybe she'd watched it and fell asleep while she was watching it with me, but this time I had her sit down and watch it because she's roughly the same age I was when the movie came out. And she has really taken the role that her grandmother has with respect to watching movies, where she can easily just go ahead and tune out of the movie to start the same thing, to start heckling the movie or start asking questions or even if she gets bored, because she hated, what was it? Jurassic World Dominion, whatever the last one was. It was just so dumb. No offense to anybody liked the movie. We just did not like it. And 5 minutes into the movie, I didn't realize I was doing it. I just started doing voices for the dinosaurs. So she only wanted to continue watching the movie as long as I did voices for the dinosaurs. Oh, and man, that's what I was doing for about 2.5. And I paused the movie and I'm like, holy shit, I got to do this for 2.5 hours. And so it got
now a 5-episode show, half an hour a day.
It just became a thing of like the dinosaurs would show up and like, what's up, motherfucker? You think you can just go ahead and tame some goddamn dinosaurs? Bitch, you thought. And she's just sitting there cracking up at the way the dinosaurs are acting and the way I'm talking. Because it just fits. It's like, oh yeah, you thought I was a regular Stegosaurus. Nah, bitch. I'm a Stabosaurus. I'm gonna take these spikes on the end of my tail and stab you in the neck.
I would like you to turn this into a children's book series that I could read. Thanks.
I'm a fuck you saurus. A what? Oh, fuck you. That's what.
Jeez.
Yes, I say these words around my child, but she understands that she is not allowed to say them, nor does she want to say them. Even when we did our stranger danger training, where I said the only time I'm giving you permission to curse is if somebody is trying to kidnap you, because that way you'll get somebody's attention. Yeah. So it's like I said, practice. I want you to. What would you say if somebody's trying to snatch you, trying to grab you, or anything like that, right? And she's like, I would say, leave me alone. It's like, you're not going to scream it. You're not going to yell it. I said, say some bad words, because it'll seem strange for somebody to hear a child yelling out curse words. So
God, that's brilliant.
She thinks it's a trick, right? She thinks it's a trick. And I'm like, no, you have my permission right now to practice saying it. What bad word would you say? And she's like, get off of me, bitch. And she said it so low and fast she was like trying, she was embarrassed, but then laughed. I was like, no, babe, it's okay. I'm telling you, like, you can practice this right now. Don't use this word in don't use any of these words in any other circumstances. You can curse right now, or as far as us practicing, but also if you get in a situation, you need to know how to say it. You need to know how to say these words and not be embarrassed by it. Because if you're embarrassed to do it, somebody might be able to take you away from us. But you need to be loud. You need to make noise. Bring attention to yourself. But it sounded like a little bird tweeting when she said bitch.
That's awesome.
Bitch. I'm like, no, you're not Kevin Hart. You gotta, put a little bit more bass in it, kid.
Somehow my daughter, who is 7, she lives with me, and anybody that's listened to this podcast knows that I can't go like 4 full sentences without the word fuck. So like, she has never said it. Like, I'm so amazed because it's just constant in our house, and it's just kind of become that thing where if it's not taboo, they don't want to do it, and but I'm really amazed by it. And the only time I've ever heard her curse on her own, this is a few years ago now, so she was probably like 4. And she opened the fridge to get a snack and something fell on the floor and she went, shit.
I remember.
And I was like, I mean, yeah, she used it, right? So
yeah,
cool.
Right context.
And that's still the only time I've ever heard her do it. It's crazy. I have to kick it up or else, I'm going to need a paternity test. So
I've seen that kid.
I see you look exactly like me.
That's your child.
But you don't curse. I don't believe you.
Maybe it's a recessive trait. I don't know.
She's just got a better vocabulary because I hear if you curse, you have a bad vocabulary.
Oh, I hate that. The people who curse a lot, it means that they have nothing to say. No, it means we're going to be unrestrained with what we have to say.
When you care more about the language than what's being said, I have a real problem with that. Like if I go off on Facebook and I'm like, fuck Donald Trump, that motherfucker did this, and people are like, language. I'm like, number one, why the fuck are you friends with me? Mm-hmm. And number two, like, that's your problem here? Go fuck yourself. Yeah. It's that simple.
You got the issue of fascism and quasi-fascism, and me saying a little dirty word, a little bad word. I think me saying a bad word is nothing in comparison to inciting violence and pushing for neo-Nazis and white supremacists to have positions of power, which, spoiler alert, we already have them in government.
Right?
Check your local sheriff's department, your local police department, fire departments, doctors' offices and hospitals, and not to mention your local schools, because I guarantee you there are people who have that same type of ideology that are in those positions. But anyway, we're here to talk about fake monsters. We're not talking about the real monsters that are out there in the world. I mean, plus we'll come back to the whole Nazi discussion with this film. So
scary German guy.
Yeah, the film we are talking about, for those of you who did not pay attention to the banner, the link, any of that other stuff that's out there,
is obviously the podcast cold.
Yeah, exactly. You just picked this up randomly. You hit that same function that's on Netflix to choose for me. We're going to be talking about Monster Squad, the 1987. Well, actually, I guess it came out in 88. The 1988. I would say it's more of a cult classic than like a theatrical hit, but from the 80s. And I know that we've gotten into a lot of 80s stuff, and I mean collectively. We got into a lot of 80s nostalgia type stuff. This movie doesn't make me feel nostalgic in the way the other films do, because there is no, hey, it's the 1980s, kind of. I'm not to pick on this film, but the way in which Back to the Future, they make it clear, like, oh, this 1985, Doc, it's not like that. Oh, it's this well, when we were in the 50s, this is how we acted. Not like you kids now in the 1980s. You're all so liberated, and women are expecting to ask men out on dates. Where it was clear, because of all the stuff that they were doing and including, where it's like, oh, I can watch this movie and think about my childhood. I watch this movie, I don't think about my childhood. I get right into the story, because this is one of those kids movies, unlike the Goonies, where it's like this drawn out plot. You know where things are going to go. You have an understanding of what's going to take place within the film. But there's that time to get to know the characters.
Mm-hmm.
The complaint I have about this movie, which is more of a compliment, they don't waste any time. Like, oh, we're gonna bullshit you with giving you some backstory about Sean and the relationship he has with his parents, and we're gonna talk about Eugene and how fucked up his household is. And, I mean, not that that's the way it was, but I mean, you see that with It. You saw that with The Goonies. You saw this with a bunch of other movies, whether they took place in the 80s or if they were reflective upon that. It was kind of like, let's go ahead and have some massive like character development with these people. The biggest character development or change I saw with it was quote unquote Fat Kid, where he's telling them like, stop calling me this, stop calling me this, stop calling me this. My name is Horace. Don't call me Fat Kid. And even his friends are like, hey, Fat Kid, what's going on? So you see it by the end of the movie that Horace is finally like, no, I'm a badass. Like, you're not going to call me that anymore. I just saved your asses from these monsters. My name is Horace.
And yeah, man, I would argue that somehow I feel like they used all these other movies to give us the backstory.
Right.
Like, everybody was familiar enough that we feel like we know them without all that, and it worked really well. I was impressed with it, and the family dynamic is fucking great. Until mom tries to ditch the kids, but we'll get there.
Tries to. She had her bags packed. Now I'm gonna ask you the question you normally ask me.
Yeah.
Now, when did you first see this movie? And for that matter, when's the last time you've seen this movie? Unlike Jaws, because when I asked you that, you're like, this is the first time.
That was great. I don't even know if it was true, but man, it made you mad. It was great.
I was pissed.
I'm pretty sure that really was the first time I saw the whole movie in a row. Like, I'd always watched pieces of it. But yeah, anyway, with this, I know I watched it on VHS, so probably 89, somewhere in there. I did not see it in theaters. But as far as like watching it recently, I don't remember watching it since then, but at the same time, like, I knew the scenes really well, so I must have. Like, it's not like something, if you watch something 30 years later, you don't remember jokes and like the order of things, or, oh, that's the kid that's going to do this, So I had to have watched it at other points, but I don't remember doing so.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I have no idea when the last time I would have seen it was. But it also felt really like I had just watched it. Especially like probably the first half an hour. I was like, did I watch this last year? Like, I don't know. So then when you throw in that you thought we had already done the episode, which I don't think you said while we were recording, I think that was before. But when you throw that in, I'm like, did we watch all this and not do the episode? Because it could have been like this, where we were going to do it together and then we like got a guest and we just like pushed it off or something. I don't know.
Well,
but I feel like I must have watched it in the last 5 years.
I think that's probably what happened. And those of you who are obviously you're listening because you're not in the rooms with us. That was the same feeling I had when I went back and watched it. I'm like, damn it, I just watched it. I know it's streaming somewhere because I just watched it. And I think what happened was either we were planning on doing this or I was hell-bent on my kid. We're going to watch a different Halloween monster horror movie every day for October. And if we missed a day, we just double up. So if we don't see it on Thursday, we'll just do a double feature on Friday or do an all day movie thing on Saturday, which we've done before if we don't have anything that we need to work on. But when I first saw this movie, I can't recall if I saw it in the theater or I saw it on video. But one of the big memories that I have about this is this was definitely a movie that I rented with my cousins when I would go to Virginia. I mean, that was one of the things that we'd do in the summers. We'd rent video games and rent movies. And that would be our whole summer entertainment. I mean, other than going outside and playing and stuff like that. But
now? People don't do that.
I know. Those damn subdivisions have screwed up everything. And all those developers that decide like, let's just go ahead and build some more luxury apartments that people can't afford.
You also just can't go outside because of the police. I've heard about that too. But that's
well, this is
a conversation.
well, this was rural Virginia. So, in all honesty, I never saw a police officer the entire summer I was there because I mean it's on a farm, so unless they're coming to the property to see you, there's really no issue. Even when we go into town, I don't remember running into anybody or any issues. But it's funny that you bring up the police in this with this because we don't necessarily need to go in order with this film. There's a lot to cover. And even when you and I were having discussions about it, you asked like, oh, what social commentary is it? I said, there's a shitload in this movie.
Before I watched it, just to be clear.
A lot. And the thing is, no. The thing is, you wouldn't think that because, it's a kid's horror movie, or it's billed as a kid's horror movie.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's a family friendly horror film, right? Because you've got a Dracula that you never see attack anybody. I mean, as far as like biting into their necks and things like that. The most graphic thing that you run into is, one of Dracula's brides is eating an opossum, which in itself is weird because does that mean that Dracula was not in Europe when Van Helsing came for him? Because it was a woman, or is that, well, anyway, there was a woman eating an opossum. That was one of the creepy things. And then
I loved it too, because it was just so ew.
Yeah. And other than that, there's really no gore in this movie. So it makes it despite it being PG-13, this is easily a PG movie by today's standards. Even a couple of the jump scares that you have with Dracula at one point, but I believe the Wolfman or a werewolf earlier in the film, where he just appears and you're like, oh shit, in the ambulance when he just jumps up behind the paramedic.
Yeah, that's great.
Because you're expecting something, but at that point, that was a really good jump scare for a kid's horror movie. But let's, I'm going to start off this in talking about one of my favorite things: vampires and sexuality.
Ooh.
Yeah, I got to say it. And let me grab the microphone as I say it, so some of the ASMR fans can get behind this one. All right. So anyway, one of the quotes or one of the theories about Dracula, or just male vampires in general, but Dracula more specifically, if you look at his history, it's about enslaving women and torturing men. And I didn't think about it. I mean, this is the first Dracula film that I've had a chance to think about, or excuse me, a film that involves Dracula, where I've had the chance to think about how that statement works, how that theory works, because that's honestly, whether you're talking about Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary Oldman, whether you're talking about the original Dracula as far as the Universal monsters, or you're talking about this one, and for that matter, even if you get into Hotel Transylvania, there's that idea of he does not like the guy that his daughter is dating. Like, it's kind of the stereotype or the caricature of fathers everywhere. Like, no guy is good enough for my daughter. I'll kill him if I have to. I'm going to hold this gun at prom so they don't get any funny thoughts. But even him, it's the same thing. It's kind of like men are something that he needs to deal with. And you see a lot of interactions with that movie series where he either is threatened by other men or feels the need to put those other men in their place, whether we're talking about other vampires or if we're talking about human beings and other monsters, things like that. But what are some of your thoughts when it comes to this whole idea of the sexuality or the perceived sexuality of something like Dracula, and what that means with his identity?
So, part of it to me always comes back to the xenophobia that Dracula's based off, right? Like, it's always this guy from the outside's going to come in, he's going to change our people and make them like him, but they still look like us. And, oh no, this is all so scary. And a lot of it could be religion, it could be whatever, right? But there's also the sex aspect. There's always the, oh, they're going to mate with our women and they're going to ruin the bloodline, whether it's color of skin or religion or just you're from Iowa and I'm from Nebraska, like whatever it is. All right, that was a cheap shot, but still. So like, I think that's always present. Like even like last year when we went through the Universal monsters, almost all of them had some sort of, they're trying to fuck our white women, right?
Okay.
And so Dracula to me, it's great because he's the only one that's overtly like he has this sex appeal that he controls people with. And I mean, I think that's always so interesting that that's the only time they really went there. But it also kind of plays into the whole, he's rich and he's good looking and he whatever. Like, I don't know. To me, it just kind of plays into every aspect of society. We always think like the rich playboy is gonna come steal your girl or whatever, So in that way, I just always find it fascinating that Dracula is the only one that we let actually do that, even though we still hold it against all of them. But I also think like there's something sexual about obviously, but like it's the whole biting and being that close and like all of that's very sexually driven anyway. So I don't know if I answered your question because I don't know exactly what it was, but hopefully I got there.
That'll do.
Sweet. I win. Oh, but yeah.
All right. So on the flip of the whole Dracula thing, and this whole idea of just monsters themselves, which jumps to several parts of the film. I mean, I really have no other way to ask this. What the fuck is the obsession with virgins? I mean, aside from like old world bullshit, but what is with the obsession with virgins, or the fact that the belief that only virgins can, I guess, stop evil, or for that matter, why is virgin always assumed to mean sexual experience?
I would like to point out that I have never been penetrated by a penis, so I am a virgin, as I said at the top of the episode. That doesn't mean I didn't want to be, but it hasn't happened for me. There's still time. The answer to your question, I think, lies in it's a way to make people fear things. Like you're not going to be able to save yourself because you're dirty now, and it goes to the soul and the whole. I don't want to insult religion too much, but that whole imaginary bullshit of if you're not absolutely perfect, then you can't save yourself. Only it's physical and it's more real. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What do you think of that? Like, is that kind of your line of thought as well, or?
I don't know. I mean, from the religious aspect, cultural aspect, all that stuff, I've always found it. It almost seems as though it takes the agency away from, because we're talking about women virgins for the most part, right? The only time that I've seen a male virgin involved in any type of situation like this is, as far as vampires and things like that, is the movie Once Bitten with Lauren Hutton and Jim Carrey, where she needs to have a virgin in order to preserve like her youth, which is, kind of an interesting plot, or at least a driving factor, motivation for a vampire. She's not going to die, but she'll keep her youthful looks if she is able to. I forgot, she had to drink his blood 3 times or something in order to obtain whatever she needed. But I think it's very strange looking at this from a 2022 standpoint, right? Virginity, as a lot of stuff in the Bible, has been open to interpretation as far as what it actually means. Because for those of you who are listening, hopefully none of you are incels. If you're listening to us, more than likely you're not an incel because you're a good person and you don't go around blaming women for all your problems. And I will say this, when it comes to women's bodies, and I know this is going to be odd for 2 guys to be talking about women's bodies at this moment. I'm going to include you because you're part of the conversation, even though I'm talking about it.
Sure.
The hymen is complete bullshit. I mean, as far as what we were taught in health school and by parents and friends and things like that, of like, oh, once you break a girl's hymen, you know, or you have sex with a woman, it breaks her hymen, she's no longer a virgin. And it wasn't until a few years ago, I mean, 5, 10 years ago, that I started seeing more discussion about how, one, that's not even true. And then two, a woman's hymen can break doing anything. And then again, a woman's hymen can actually grow back. So this whole idea of these movies where I've seen people like, you know, inspecting women to determine whether or not they were virgins, or holding them to some standard that you don't hold men to. Now, of course, the argument for men would be like, well, you can't prove that a man is a virgin because there's no physical way. There's really no physical way for a woman other than if she has, well, even if she has a child, it doesn't mean that she had sex to have that child. God, that would be a weird question. That if you have in vitro fertilization, you have a virgin birth, are you still a virgin?
Oh boy, don't bring virgin birth into this. We'll get all kinds of hate mail.
Well, look, trust me. I've had that going when I asked those questions. I actually had a priest of all people answer this question to my satisfaction. And this is what I'm saying about the whole idea about a virgin. This was like years ago. And the clergyman basically stated the virgin birth doesn't mean that Mary never had sex. It meant that she was such a good person. So my question then became like, so basically what people have been learning all this time was that Mary had a baby with another being without ever having sex in her life. And what this guy was saying is like, it's all been misinterpreted because it's open to interpretation, that virgin just meant that she was a good person. She was incorruptible. Like it was one of those things of like, she didn't do harm to anyone. So she was pure in that sense, not necessarily in the sense that she'd been married to this guy and they'd never done anything. And then in some circles, virgin just meant unmarried. It just depended on the circle that you were in. But no, I find it very odd. If we were go forward and you've got a movie in 2022, 2023 that comes out that makes the same argument of like, you're only worthy if you're a virgin. I mean, especially considering all the purity culture stuff that's out there that talks about why you need to be a certain way in order to get into another place. But it doesn't matter how you treat people. It's just you shouldn't have sex with anybody and you should wait until marriage. And I hate to tell some of you who believe in that still, that is your belief. That is your calling, whatever it is. But don't expect that other people should do the same, or at least do the things that your religious doctrine or ideology pushes, because that's a little bit invasive. Kind of like much of the legislation that's been taking place since we took a hiatus.
Oh man, that could be an episode in and of itself right there.
Rosemary's Baby.
But I don't know, man. The whole obsession with virginity, like it's creepy enough to me in movies, but when you move to like I see like the purity balls and the weird shit like that, like and again, if that's your thing, I guess, but it's really, really creepy to me. But yeah, I don't know. You were talking about like, movies where I've seen people examining hymens and whatever, and it's like, people like, I'm not insulting you. I'm saying, building off of that, like, people have fucking died because somebody was like, oh, she didn't bleed the first time I fucked her,
right.
Like, holy shit, man. Like, people are just so fucking evil. I don't know. I'm not going anywhere with that. I'm just bitching about how evil people are.
Look, that's a perfect place to go with it, because I'm just going to go ahead and, I guess, God, I've used this term like 3 times today. I'm just going to piggyback off of what you said there. Because it's again, it's one of those things that again, I'm going to include you because we're the same generation. I mean, we're only 4 months apart, but the same generation.
But I look 78, whereas you still look okay because black doesn't crack. So,
well, Anyway, what's remarkable is when you and I were growing up. I mean, in different areas, but the same doctrine, the same bullshit was passed in all the schools, and especially since you went to Catholic school, you went to private school at one point. But the idea that you should not, as a guy, when it comes to those expectations or those elevated expectations or even the double standards, as a guy, oh my God, I forgot it has come back with this Andrew Tate bullshit. Oh my God, I forgot. Anyway, so history itself is cyclical. Things that happened before are going to happen again. But when we were growing up, we had that same thing that was going on with, you should marry a girl who's not a virgin. She's not as much value as another girl or whatever because somebody else has already had sex with her. Oh, someone has already broken the seal, or someone's already, turning into inanimate objects and saying stupid shit like, well, if a lock accepts all types of keys, that it's a really shitty lock. That type of nonsense, right?
Yeah.
So what we've unfortunately seen, there was like a break when we weren't seeing that as much. And now it seems as though thanks to incels and Andrew Tate stands and people listen to Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro of all people are running around saying things like, oh, wait, I haven't done my Ben Shapiro impression on the show, have I?
I don't think so.
All right, fuck it. Here we go. If you're an American, you should be thinking about actually waiting until marriage to have sex, because if you want to have children, you should be doing that in the confines of a wedded home and not in a place in which you have to worry about being out on the street or having an abortion or any of these other things. Because you know what? The taxpayers don't need to pay for this. This is your personal choice. And thankfully, you live in America where you have the freedom to make that choice. Now, you might not have that choice in many other states. In fact, it's probably going to go away because the patriotic Republicans are going to push for a national ban on abortion. So what do you think now, California? It started taper off at the end. I'm not doing the Alex Jones because my throat is dead after I do that impression.
Oh man!
But no, just
ask for that in the future.
No, I'm gonna talk about the gay frogs anyway. So anyway, like I said, I'm not doing that. What is very remarkable about this is we have, like, I can't even tell you how many guys in their 20s and in their teens and 20s that are running around talking about having putting a value on a woman, making sure that you have a high value woman, which, she can go out and earn money. She hasn't fucked anybody else. She hasn't had any kids by anybody else and all this other stuff. And making it seem as though one type is superior to the other. Now, by all means, if you want that, that's your personal preference. That's your personal opinion. But when you start advocating and denigrating women who have those lives, that's a completely different issue. And that's, I mean, to continue on where we were with the Virgin chat, the whole idea that this is what has dictated things for so many people. To where they either think they have no value as a human being, as a lover, as a partner. And then you have some people with the overinflated understanding of, or I'm sorry, the misconception, not the understanding, the overinflated misconception that I'm worth something because of this job that I have, or this how much money I have. And because I have these things, I deserve to have your vagina.
These things make me so angry. I don't even know what to say. I don't know.
I just say I'm sorry, don't fuck incels, because that's the whole problem with them. Is they're arguing that people don't want to fuck them.
I can't imagine why. They seem like such great individuals.
No, my question is
so much to the table.
Well, I mean, they've definitely done a shitload of harm. But anyway, all right. Well, before we jump to even more into this, as far as monsters themselves, as opposed to where we started off with the Mary Shag kill or the Mary Fuck kill with the monsters. Which of these monsters would you most want to be? I'm speaking from this film, as far as the ones that are there. Like, actually, I take that back. We'll just do any and all. So, what monster, I guess, made an impression on you, either in this film or elsewhere, that I was kind of like, oh man, I would love to be like that. You don't really see any drawbacks to it.
I mean,
or at least you're not perceiving them.
Yeah, no. So before I answer that, I'm going to start with the one I identify with most. And that is definitely Frankenstein's monster. There's something about how he just wants friends. He just wants to live. He just wants to be left the fuck alone. Like I've just always identified heavily with him. Mm-hmm. If I had a choice, though, I'm not going to choose him because he's got a kind of rough life going on, you know? That scene in this where he points at his face and says scary, like that ripped me up. And I'm like, how did you do that? How did you make me feel, you dicks? You know, like, but no, I would choose Dracula because, you know, he's got the house, but okay. So it's not that I would be like Dracula is though. Like, I don't like, sure, he needs to feed or whatever, but I think I would just like chill in my castle and fly around like a bat and just enjoy life and never go outside. That sounds amazing to me. So that's my choice. What's yours?
All right.
Gil.
Well, now that you added the whole thing of like identify with. All right. Now, mind you, this is not the Invisible Man from the Universal movies, as far as like where he's a complete douchebag.
Okay. So you just have his powers.
Just the powers.
Okay.
And I say that because there are a lot of times that I found myself in a situation where I honestly wish I could disappear. I'm like, I mean, Invisible Man is a sense where I could snap my fingers and boom, I've disappeared. I'm invisible.
So you wouldn't get stuck that way,
right? So okay. It's She-Hulk rules. So I can go back and forth as being seen and unseen because there are a shitload of moments that I found myself in where I'm like, I wish I could disappear right now. And there are other moments where people forgot I was in the room and said some things they shouldn't have said. And I would love to like sit there and boom, do the exact opposite where I reappear. I'm like, what were you guys saying about? Because it would be really interesting to test that out to where you can just disappear and not have to worry and just have somebody sitting there wondering what the hell happened. Meanwhile, you've just, I'm going to go live my life over here. I'm going to sneak onto the bus, sneak onto the train, and get the hell away from you.
Oh, man. I didn't think about how easily you could sneak onto transportation. That's pretty great. Damn.
Now, low-level transportation. So, I mean...
You could probably get on a plane as long as there's empty seats. You just have to wait to take your spot.
It'd be really awkward when you know...
Can you imagine the joy though? Like some big asshole like causing problems. You could just go up and like punch him in the head and nobody would know what happened.
Oh my gosh. Now I'm gonna see if I can work on that invisibility potion.
When you said the snapping your fingers and being like, I'm sorry, what did you say? All I could picture, and I don't know why, but it was Chris Tucker, and I was just picturing him like popping in going, the fuck did you just say? Like,
that's pretty much what it would be like. You're like, Don, where did you come from? I've been in this meeting all day. Nobody saw me. Wink. I have this thing on here about generational gap, but that was more about the weird teacher where it's like, science is cool. I dig it. My daughter.
Dude, I definitely had that teacher. The I dig it is what like just solidifies it for me.
My daughter's commentary, I had to laugh. I almost wrote this down. But when the guy's like, I dig it, she like slowly turned her head to look at me. It was like, Daddy, why is he trying to sound cool? Not like, why is he trying to sound cool? She's like, why is he trying to sound cool? I'm like, well, you know, because he's much older and these are kids. So he's trying to figure out a way to relate to him. It's like, but why would he use their words? That's so creepy. And I was like, yes, you get it.
Oh, it's hilarious.
All right. Here's something that comes back, and it goes back to the line that you'd asked when we started. There is so much, I guess you could call it speculation or disinformation when it comes to monsters and things like that, to the point where they're, questioning how to kill a werewolf. They're, as far as giving, I think, giving Rudy the test, right?
Yeah.
They've got all these things about, oh, this is how this is going to, you kill this one. This is how this one. Oh, what's the name of, is the name of the Frankenstein, the monster, or the doctor? So going through all that stuff. But it's really cool when they get into other things like, oh, well, if you're going to fight Wolfman, just, kick him in the nards. Or I'm sorry, what happens if you pull down his pants? It's like, you see his wolf nards. And that whole debate over whether or not Wolfman has nards. That is the one line. Anyone who has ever seen this movie, that is the one line they will pull in because it stands out so well in it, and it gives the character this film. But what were some, I don't know, some things about monsters that you had heard, and I guess just became common knowledge?
Like what else? Like, give me another example. Because
like Dracula has to bite you on the neck in order for you to change.
So the one that I never understood that's always bothered me, and maybe I'm sure somebody out there knows why it's canon or whatever, but why the fuck is it garlic?
Yes.
I do not understand the garlic thing, and I never have. And I mean, I'll be honest, I've never Googled it because it didn't mean that much to me. But it continues to just, like, even as a kid, I was like, why garlic? Why not this? Why not that? Like, I don't know. It's always been very strange to me. What else? Just stuff like that. Even like the silver bullets. I was always like, well, does it have to be 100% silver, or like, does a little bit of silver work? Like, I would think using a little tiny bit of silver in a regular bullet would still do something. So I don't know, like maybe you should make 100 of those bullets instead of 2 good ones. I have no idea, those were like the main things that as a kid I always thought about. And I don't know, just outside of that, it was always just, like I didn't really have questions about the others. Like the others made sense to me. I mean, within their confines of what they are, they made sense to me. I guess maybe Frankenstein, like my one question, this doesn't answer your question, but my one question about Frankenstein is like, how do they keep him from decomposing further and stuff not staying together? I don't know. That's something I think about now, but I didn't think about it then, so it doesn't really answer your question. But I don't know. What else do you got besides the garlic and the silver bullets?
Well, I was going with even other things because this was one that became a point of contention with me and my daughter when we watched it. In the beginning of the movie, it's obvious it's daytime, right?
Oh yeah.
Dracula is a bat. He's on the plane while it's still sunlight out. The door opens, the cargo bay or whatever opens up, and then Dracula is standing over clouds that are lit up with sunlight.
Yeah.
Then drops down under the plane and flies during the day down to the swamp and is hanging as a bat. So my daughter was like, I thought sunlight would kill them. Or she compared this movie with the garlic thing. She compared it to Hotel Transylvania, where she said, oh, they use the pizza because he's allergic to the garlic. I'm like, okay. But she had a question when she saw him flying. She was like, why isn't he burning up? And then I thought about all the stuff that's in vampire lore.
Mm-hmm.
It goes from, it just gives them a mild sunburn that they recover from. It makes them, for some reason, it makes them glitter or shimmer or whatever, sparkle. It makes them do that, right?
Oh my.
Then there is...
She's cashing a lot of checks,
It's burning... Oh, she is. I wish I could get that fan base. You know what? I'll write some horror erotica as well.
Continue.
50 Shades of Monsters coming to you this fall, but you'll be coming even sooner.
Oh my.
But anyway.
Yes.
Damn it, what were we talking about? No, the vampires. Okay. So it's the issue of it doesn't bother them. It makes them itchy. They're allergic to the sun, so they get like a mild sunburn that they'll recover from, or sores or whatever. They'll sparkle, all this type of stuff that's out there. So I'm going through all this, and it's already been understood. He's been out in the daylight, and he's not hurt by it.
Yeah.
Whereas other parts of the lore are boom, you burn up completely in that moment. You can't have any part of the sun touch you, or wherever the sun touches, you're going to burn. So you can move through shadows, things like that. And it would be interesting to see them address this. Like the kids are like, oh well, let's find where Dracula's house is during the day and go kill him, because he can't come out. So that doesn't come up like you've seen in other films. But again, I mean, this was a movie that I don't think anybody was taking them more seriously than they needed to take it. So you didn't have to worry about social media, people coming on and complaining and saying, that's not how Dracula would have done X. Or, Frankenstein would never be Dracula's slave. Or whatever other things that they might come up with, right? So they had the freedom in the 80s, I would say, to not be completely loyal to the source material and play around it. Which again makes it a fun movie, makes it one of those things where you see stuff and you're like, you know what, fuck it. You don't need to explain it. I'll just accept it as is, and then go about my life.
Well, and I think like they did so many little tiny nods to the originals that were really cool. Especially, obviously, Frankenstein's monster meeting the little girl by the water.
Right.
Like, fantastic. Like, what a great way to change that whole lore right there and show what it could have been. Because, he gets his friend, which is what he wants so bad. And then that being the crux of the entire rest of the movie is so great, but it all comes back to this nod to the original. Or you have a nod to Wolfman, where we have somebody using binoculars to look in a girl's bedroom. There's just so many nods to these originals. No, but really, the other thing I think is great is that as much as we know the lore and stuff, we got this better look at each of them. Like Frankenstein's monster's turn and how he turns against Dracula and becomes friends and saves these kids instead. Like, all of that is so well done. And yet it's not a violation of character in the slightest bit.
Right.
Like, if you know all of the lore, this fits perfectly. And I love that so much. The other thing, I couldn't help but wonder the entire film. This is something that really pulled me out occasionally. Why the fuck? Number one, why does Dracula need these other monsters? And number two, why the fuck? Why are they involved? None of them care. They don't want to do these things. The first chance he gets, Frank's out. And like, I don't know what the fuck Wolfman's doing. He's just like having a party, but also like in his own personal hell at the same time. And then Gilman, I don't know what's up with that dude. He just occasionally shows up and does shit and leaves. He's almost like a Boba Fett, He's like a mercenary. So I don't know what the fuck they're doing there. Do you have any thoughts on that? Or,
all right. Here are my thoughts. I feel like
he would have been better off not bringing these fuckers with him.
I think everything for Dracula would have worked out. But I think it hang with me. I think it means that you end up with a better movie, as opposed to, we can go ahead and have all these monsters. We've got these 5 kids. We have these 5 monsters. Well, I guess it expands at different times, but we got these monsters, right? So we're going to use the universal monsters that people, not that they use universal because I don't want to get them tied up in anything. They use monsters that people recognize from the universal films. So Dracula, and here's the other thing. Before before I forget, I'm sorry. Dracula leaves a message for Sean, and I might be wrong. That's the only time that the name Dracula comes up, because obviously none of the monsters are calling him that. Frankenstein's monster is referring to him as Master.
Yeah.
There's never this moment where, "Hi, I'm Dracula. I'm going to kill your kids and take a big green jewel that I can't touch." There's never a moment where he introduces himself that way. And even when it comes to the Wolfman, they never really say, "Hey, this is the Wolfman."
It's a werewolf. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was they had enough room to go
when
ahead.
They do call him Wolfman, it's because the kids refer to them that way.
Yes.
Because that's the names they're used to.
And the thing is, if you've got all those monsters, as opposed to this is, Monster Squad versus Dracula, it would be a whole lot more fun to have all these other monsters involved, because like you said earlier, you don't have to give a backstory to Dracula, to the Wolfman, to any of these other creatures, because the source material is already there and their stories are very easy to understand. I mean, as far as like their identities, not their stories, but their identities, to where you see him and you don't think, "Oh my gosh, is he a goat or is that a wolf?"
But even the Mummy, like, we don't need the whole breakout. There's an empty coffin. He's escaped. We know the story. It's great.
And even then, there is no explanation of motivations, loyalty, any of the stuff that's going on, right? Because I was like you, I was confused as hell when it came to, the raising of Frankenstein's crate. And I made
the whole thing's way more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah. I made my Star Wars jokes when I was watching it, because I'm like, I feel like I've seen something get lifted out of the swamp water before with someone's mind. But we quickly understand it's not Dracula using telekinesis. It's him just calling for, God, I almost said Aquaman. It's calling for the it's calling for the creature to come
just
sit
the water guy
and pick it up. But I think that's an added element for my age group our age group when we watched it back in the 80s, where it was, as a kid who's watching this, you're not going to be looking for just Dracula if just by the way they're advertising it. Because if you're calling this the Monster Squad, you got to have more than one. Otherwise, what are you trying to do with this organization that you created? So if I'm watching this as a kid, I'm excited because I'm like, oh shit, there are a bunch of monsters in this movie. And at times you had some cool horror movies where you had, a few monsters or a few killers that were running around, that make the story a little bit more interesting, or at least allows you to stretch out that story, because starting off where it was with just having Dracula, and it's like he's taking this plane ride to wherever Van Helsing's followers were hiding the gem and all this other stuff. Then that becomes one of those stories where it's like, okay, well, it's just, I've got to invest a lot of time, or a lot more time, in Dracula and more time in these kids. And then I don't think the movie would have worked as well.
No, it definitely wouldn't have. Even if it was, like you said earlier, if it was Monster Squad versus Dracula, like, I don't think it would have worked as well. I don't think, if anything, it would have had to build up to the movie we started with, right? Like, we would have fought each one individually, and then we would have gotten the big, not that there was.
Yeah, it would be like a Marvel series
back then, but yeah, like that's the only way to tell that story. So no, I think it's great that they started the way they did. I just logically, I'm just like, what the fuck?
Oh, I mean, because we're stuck asking, what are the loyalties? What are the motivations? Right? Yeah. Because the only one, as you point out, the only one that speaks, or at least has this moment to speak, is Frankenstein's monster, when he's talking about, you want me to go get this, go get the book, blah, blah, blah. it's never addressed. I mean, because I made jokes when I was watching it saying that Dracula was the king of monsters because one, he's the most recognizable, right? But then in this movie, you see him as leading all the monsters where they have to do his bidding, and it can't possibly be anything as I mean, as simple as, well, Dracula is going to kill us if we don't help him. Which again, there's unless he has the jewel. You know what? The only other thing I could think of is this, and it's when scary German guy is.
I love that that's his name.
And the thing is, I looked to see if they ever gave him another name, and so on the IMDb credits, he's scary German guy.
Nice. I like that he doesn't care either. He's like, yeah, okay.
So yes, I'm from Germany.
But what were you going to say about him?
Oh, you never have this moment that the motivations of those other monsters is clear. So what I was thinking is probably, as the scary German guy said at the house, that if this is not stopped, darkness will rule, or evil will rule the world. So my thinking was, is it only the monsters that are associated with, having the spell pulled off, or is it all monsters?
Ooh.
Because then it seems as though Dracula would say, well, I'm going to take this area. I'm going to take Eastern Europe or Southern, and part of the Mediterranean. Whereas Wolfman wants to stay in America. I mean, because he's either on the American continent, because he's either from the U.S. or from Canada. Then you've got the mummy. Maybe the mummy reobtains all the land in North Africa that was part of whatever their kingdom was
nice.
When they were alive, right?
Marjorie Taylor Greene takes Georgia. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Or you have the creature who just goes back to the Amazon, or if he can deal with salt water, both freshwater and saltwater, and he gets to rule the seas and becomes the new Aquaman, and people can complain that it's not how they envision Aquaman to look, or whatever other mermaids are out there. Oh, you know what? Speaking of creepy German guy, this is something I found funny when it came to, if I were writing this story, how would I write it now? Because when the kids, when Sean gets the book, he's like, "Oh, this is awesome! This is great! Oh, this is in German," and it's just so funny how they're able to develop so many stories and so many characters in such a short time, to where you see how they're all going to have some connection to each other, where it's like, who do we know that speaks German? Oh, it's the creepy German guy. Right. And then you quickly realize what it's like as a kid. Well, actually, two things before I get to the realizing what it's like as a kid. I think about the distinction between 87, 88, as far as where my mind was at that point and where my mind is in 2022, given the experience, given the technology that's available. 10-year-old me would have looked at this and like, oh man, I guess we have to go to the library and get an English to German dictionary, or in their case, find somebody who speaks German that Now it's so, I should say it's simple, but it's also complicated as well. If I don't speak the same language as someone, I can simply hold my phone up and it gets translated. There is no, I have to find somebody who speaks this language, or I have to find somebody who can translate for both of us. It is simply, you got to find somebody's, you got to find some way to figure it out on the internet, through your phone, whatever, because you have access to all that. So as I said, I was thinking about how would I write this in a 2022 world, right? You got social media, you got all this stuff that could be searched. It's like, oh, well, we need somebody who speaks German. Oh, just use Google Translate. Or, with licensing, you would just say use, Insta Translate online. Because I think that's one of the cool things, even though I mentioned that this film itself is not nostalgic, but it is a reminder of how vastly different today is versus 87 when the movie was made, 88 when it came out, to where you can't you're going to have a lot more free time. If you're not chasing down someone who speaks German, and you can just, type it all into a document and have it auto translated. But then again, does the spell have to be read in the language in which it was written? Because we could have just had creepy German guy read it, translate it, and say, all right, honey, this is what you need to say. That way you don't have any mispronunciations. But I always found that weird that it's like, oh, you have to read this spell in ancient Aramaic. Like, no one speaks that. That's why the spell is safe. There's no moment to where you can say the exact same words that are in the spell. But monsters hate religious stuff.
Well, even like the reason it's always bothered me is anybody that studies language at all knows that just even going like 100 kilometers away, like it could be very different, like certain words or phrases or any of that kind of stuff, So this kind of stuff has always bothered me whenever I see it in movies, because I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like, what if you got the wrong person? And he's like, why are we talking about a cow when that's not what it was about at all, Or just the way that we pronounce words differently, You
mean like nuclear and nuclear?
Yeah, or like dipshit or president, I was on hiatus too long. But yeah, it's always been one of those pet peeves of mine where I'm like, well, what if you don't say it exactly the way that the spirit thing needs you to say it? What if it's like, nope, I don't like that. Too bad. That's not how we say it here.
I could imagine the spirit up there. I just, whatever it is, it's like, that's the worst accent I've ever heard in my life. I wouldn't even dignify your spell. You know what? I suggest you go back to where you learned that spell and learn English, and then become a citizen the right way, and then I'll do the spell for you. That whole spell where you
leave.
Yeah, that whole spell where you pick up your right hand or put it over your heart and take an undying blood oath to a nation.
They make my 7-year-old do that. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Oh, before we leave Scary German guy, because I flipped my page on my notes.
He moved into the Burbs next to Tom Hanks.
Damn you.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry. Was that really your joke? I'll edit it out and let you have it.
No, it's not. No, it's like when you said it, I was like, fuck, that's right. He was in that movie. You want to find out about the Burbs, definitely download that episode.
That's a fun episode. I love the Burbs. I still want to write a modern day retelling of the Burbs, but continue. What were you saying?
Look, I'm with you on that one. I want to see it. It'll probably be like Timothy Chalamet.
The only important thing to me is that Corey Feldman still lives on the street, and he still doesn't care about anyone else. He just watches them. Except now he's older instead of younger. Like, I think that would be great. Anyway, somebody make that fucking movie, or let me.
All right, so Scary German Guy, right? When I initially saw this movie, I didn't understand so much stuff that was going on, because your worldview.
Yeah.
And I was, those of you who've been listening, I was watching it with my daughter, and I wanted to see what she got out of the movie and what she liked, what she didn't like. When it came to the part where Scary German Guy gives that line of, I've seen my share of monsters, or I had it written down. But anyway, I've seen my share of monsters.
Oh, man.
And, he has the markings on his wrist. So my daughter asked, like, what do those numbers mean? I paused the movie because I'm like, you are not going to miss this moment, kid. And I'm not going to do a disservice and not talking to you about it. So I explained to her, I said, we've talked about, who the Nazis are. She's like, yeah. I said, well, the Nazis attacked, enslaved, and killed anybody who was this, or this. And she said something like, what the fuck? I mean, she didn't say it, but as far as like what I translated in my head was, it's like, what the fuck is their problem, Dad? But what she really said was, they really have issues, or they have problems. It's like, why would you just want to be around people that look like you? That's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as far as the way it translated to me is like, what is their fucking problem? Are they just stupid pieces of shit? But what this scene, yeah, what this scene did for me as a kid pales. I'm sorry, my reaction now pales in comparison. Flip it again. I was overwhelmed by this scene as a teenager when I watched it. When I rewatched it, when I watched it again in college, seen it a few years since then. I wasn't prepared for the kind of depth that they were going to throw into this movie. Even having watched it before, because just that the numbers themselves being tattooed there as his markings of going to either labor or death camp, concentration camp, regardless. You then start to question, like, what was his life like? What were the circumstances? What is the stuff that he saw, right? But then contrast that with this idea of they are always calling him scary German guy. And I feel as though that man is feeling the same isolation he would have felt if he had been the only Jewish person on his neighborhood growing up, as far as like the way that isolation and the way that somebody can dehumanize you as a result of that distance, to where, you know, they're not interested in knowing this guy's a neighbor. In fact, they want to keep their distance. They think he's creepy, but he's the only person who speaks German. So we're now going to go talk to him. We can use whatever his ability is. He's not so scary. And then they get in the house, eat all his fucking pie. Okay. Eat all of his pie. And and you still are going to call him scary German guy. Like,
well, why don't that's the name they know him by? They don't.
I know, but you could they could easily ask, you know, sir, which name is? Oh, it's Leopold, or
whoa! Actually, ask somebody their name and use it. So what's wrong with you? It's crazy.
I know, it's crazy. It's like you almost start to see someone as another human being. But
they don't even know fat kids' names. So
my name is Horace.
Although fat kid's better than what some people call him. So.
Oh, yes. Most definitely.
Dude, right. I have such a visceral reaction to that word now. Like I got like seriously pissed off hearing that word in the movie. Like I didn't know that about myself until I watched this. So there you go.
Wait, which F word?
The one that's kind of like fat kid, but not.
Okay.
You know, if you say it fast enough. Not that it means the same thing.
No. It's just when I was watching it and the first time the F-bomb dropped, and I mean the F-bomb that I will not allow in my house.
F-bomb. Yeah.
Because fuck is just a word. But when you're talking about
something we do in this house. Oh wait, what?
It's a noun, a verb.
No, continue.
But when it showed up on the screen, because we watch everything with captions. I mean, you pretty much have to do that now, either because you're eating or you have very bad sound editing on the movie or television show. But we're watching it, and the word comes up, and she doesn't have a reaction because she hasn't heard that word. I mean, I don't recall us watching anything in a while in her presence where they said that. Unless it was like Bad News Bears, because I mean they did throw that into that film along with some other slurs, but it's so long ago she probably forgot. But the idea that was a term that was acceptable even in a PG-13 movie and some PG movies, but I explained to her that's a word that you will never use, and I explained to her what it meant. So now she has added that into her vocabulary of words that are inappropriate to say to or about people.
People that use that word.
And that was the other thing, because we ran into that with Lil Nas X, or at least some kids' reaction to Lil Nas X, because she likes him, she likes his music, she likes Lizzo, she likes all that stuff. And one of her classmates last year said something like, "Oh, I don't like Lil Nas X anymore because he goes against God."
Wow.
And yeah. And so she was telling me this, and I said, that's his problem. That's not That's not your problem. Or I said, that's a him problem, not a you problem.
Yep.
And explaining that at this time, I think she was 6. It was, 6, roughly 7. But explaining that to a kid as far as like, you shouldn't treat somebody differently, except if they disagree with whatever, our religion says. So if they happen to be in a daddy relationship or a mommy relationship, they're not welcome at our church, and we don't necessarily have to respect their quote unquote life choices, because that becomes the excuse as well. I know. Can you tell I've lived in the South around evangelicals?
You think?
But no, I explain, and I think when people say, and I completely agree with I think Warner Brothers and even MGM. Well, I guess MGM is owned by Warner Brothers now, but with the classic cartoons that we watched, there was debate a few years ago about, should the cartoons leave some of the racially insensitive stuff in? Should we leave some of the slurs in? Things like that, right? And they decided, they caught a lot of flack for it initially, for having a disclaimer, for having a trigger warning. And what they, to paraphrase their press statement, it was like, no, we want to be mindful of the material that's out there, but we don't want to alter it from what it was been. So they made the right decision. But there were people who were just ridiculously upset, especially on social media, that a company that owns a cartoon would have the nerve to let you know, hey, there are images in here that are offensive racially, to gender identities, to national, different nationalities. This in no way represents, what we see as entertainment. However, these are historical artifacts, however they put it. And it gives you this great moment when you can look back at some of these films and point out to people what was wrong, point out to anyone else what was wrong, and say, I liked this movie as a kid, but I know from looking at these images now, this is sexual harassment, this is racial intolerance, this is homophobic, and again, have people learn from that and understand how much culture has changed, to where if you say the F word or the N word in public, I hope someone is beating the shit out of you.
Right.
Because
I would throw the R word into that as well.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I don't even think about that anymore, because it has been, I don't think the last time I saw that word used was probably a movie I was watching from the 70s or early 80s, where they used that. And just to think, like, the F word and the R word were commonly used insults in the 80s and the 90s, and wholly inappropriate.
When you want to talk about people that don't have a good vocabulary, so they got to lean on a word.
Well, my opinion about that is this. That just adds flavor and seasoning to your argument. It does not demonstrate that you can't have a command of the English language. All right. I got a serious thing to bring up.
Oh my. Okay, let me sit up for this.
Now, I'm saying this as someone who has significantly grown since I first watched this film.
You're much taller.
Yes. I say this with all respect, or disrespect, depending on how you look at it. Sean behaves exactly like a kid whose dad is a cop. Exactly how you would expect him to behave.
Yeah, good and bad.
Yeah.
Like he's very good at taking the lead. He's, that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, definitely.
It's just, I just did not trust him so many times in this movie. Even though I've seen this, I'm like, he's going to snitch on somebody. He's going to tell. Not only that, but like the dad, the parental child relationship, as well as the spousal arrangement and situation is just, there's so much going on.
Oh yeah.
Like the mom is complaining that the dad isn't home, but the dad has a very demanding job that takes him out at weird hours because he's a police detective. But then Sean doesn't want Phoebe around.
Seem like he wants to be home either, though.
No, it just seems like everybody is going through the motions, going through the paces of like, this is what we should behave like.
Do you think that Phoebe turned out halfway normal because they haven't paid any attention to her for 5 years?
Look, that was the other question I had was I don't see him hugging, embracing, or even talking to his daughter until, it's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But I hope she would come out normal. Because she seems like a well-adjusted kid already at 5. That she's able to make friends with Frankenstein's monster and save the world.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that portal,
seems like even like the way she wants to be a part of the group or any of that stuff. She just seems so much more well-adjusted than the others,
and a lot quicker too.
I mean, and look how quickly she accepts Frank. She's like, "Yeah, dude, you can be my friend. You're cool."
Because like you said, she's looking for somebody to hang out with. Frankenstein is looking for that friend from canonically. And you do have the merging that takes place there where she's getting rejected and they're both finding acceptance. If only
it makes me wonder what Rudy's
thrown her in the
doing.
water.
Why is Rudy friends with these guys? Why doesn't Rudy know anybody his age?
Jesus Christ. You're looking at my notes, dude.
It's kind of creepy. That's all I'm saying. Like, it's like, I know that we're supposed okay. So him looking in a girl's bedroom, like that was normal movie stuff at that point. Like George McFly was doing that shit in the 50s,
Right.
And of course I always bring up Lon Chaney Jr., Larry. He was doing that stuff back in the 30s. So, I mean, that's pretty normal. Like that today makes him seem kind of like a creep, but I'm way more weirded out that this guy wants to hang out with these kids than I am that he's looking at a blonde chick in her bedroom. I don't know. There's something weird about Rudy.
Well,
also, really fast on the Rudy note, do you think, nothing against Ryan Lambert, I believe his name is, nothing against that dude, but like, did he get cast because Corey Feldman was filming something? Because I feel like this role was written for Corey Feldman. So
it definitely has that on it. It's like Philip Seymour Hoffman when he was playing a role that was obviously supposed to be for Jack Black, and it made no sense why he was acting that way. But yeah, I can see that. And that was even one of the film recommendations was The Lost Boys, because he looks like he's the missing frog brother.
Yes, absolutely. And he's good in it. Nothing against him. I thought he did a great job in the role and everything. And I think it's crazy. I was looking at IMDb and stuff, and this is like what he's known for. And I was like, you didn't do anything wrong. How did you not get 200 more films at that point?
Right.
Especially because Feldman can't make everything.
Especially during that period, because you had stuff
like 19
everywhere.
films a year.
Yeah. There's still movies I haven't seen that he's made. And I used to be huge fan of the Coreys.
Oh yeah. Blown away, baby. Oh, anyway. So but what were you going to say about Rudy before I went on this rant? Do you remember?
Well, I was going to say the thing about why is he there, but then also I've got two problems with the story. But again, doesn't matter because the movie is about having fun and having fun at this stuff. But I'm sitting watching like during their getting ready montage because, they only have one day to save the world. But they're getting ready montage that, apparently Rudy has like 8 different classes and PE and a break during the day. So I'm just joking because it's just kind of like, oh, he's taken from the archery team or from PE class that's using archery at this moment. Oh, he's gonna make.
I love how easily he steals the archery stuff.
He doesn't look suspicious at all while he's doing it, though.
I love that they could have gone complicated with this, and they're like, what if he just walks up and takes it?
And I'll be honest, that would probably be the most efficient way to do it.
Right?
Pretend like you're supposed to be there and walk off. But the other thing was, and you were talking about the creep factor with him.
Yeah.
This is something I found was extra creepy, and especially is extra creepy today, is the moment in which Rudy discovers that Frank, well, he doesn't know that Frankenstein did it, but he develops the film, and one of the pictures is a topless, God, I forget it was Emily?
I think it's Lisa or something
Lisa.
like that. I don't know.
Oh, that's right, because she's what's his face's sister. But it's interesting how, I'm trying to think about how to put. It's interesting how you can have that in an '80s movie of, oh, we got this tongue-in-cheek thing of oh, I found a photo of your sister. Haha, give me $5 and I'll give it to you. As opposed to, hey, I have this naked picture of you, or this topless picture of you. You're a teenager. I'm a teenager. Well, actually, no, I think he was 12. But you're a teenager, a couple of years older than me, and I'm an impressionable kid. You need to come and help us, or else we're going to show everybody this picture of you. Which, again, by today's standards, knowing where gender dynamics are and understanding the history of that, you're like, there's no fucking way. There's no way. I mean, you have people that are leaking sex tapes and private photos and things like that. And it's too real for a lot of people to where you can't make that as kind of a plot point or a little joke that finally, quote unquote, pays off.
Yeah, that whole thing's weird to me. Plus, I was kind of like, I don't think that the film people would have given that photo over. Like maybe if you were an adult and they didn't know the age of like she's like 17 or something, right? So like you could feasibly be like, I don't know her age or whatever if you don't know her, but like. I just don't feel like they'd hand these pictures over to kids. It's very odd to me.
Hey, man, the 80s was a wild place.
Imagine a scene where she walks into wherever they developed the film and the film guy's like, yeah, like... I'm kidding. Please don't actually think I want that added. But, yeah.
No, that's another movie. It's called... It's the movie with Robin Williams.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. A really good movie.
24-hour photo or something like that. I don't remember. Anyway, yeah.
Really good movie. When you talk about creepy guys in film.
Hey, I have a question because I was reading like things you didn't know about this film or whatever, right? And I missed this, or it's not in the version I have. I don't know. So that's my question for you. They said that in the original, the way the movie normally showed, you couldn't see the photo when they look at it, and then later you could, and it was just a woman standing in a pool. It wasn't a naked girl at all. And was that in the version that you watched? Did I miss it, or was it not? Like maybe it's like the theatrical ratio or something. I have no idea, but
I didn't see that. So I
thought that was really funny.
I wanna take a look at that.
But yeah, it was like it wasn't even like the same actress. It was just a photo they held up because it was off screen, so it didn't matter. And who knows? It's the internet. I could be wrong too.
All right.
Yeah.
I got this next piece I've got written down as portable pizza. Now,
I love it already. Let's do this.
Now, I appreciate where the 80s is, right? There's some stuff that
in the past.
Yeah. There's some stuff you look at and you're like, okay, it doesn't land as a joke. Then there's other things that you look at and you're like, oh, that's really fucked up and offensive, and no, we shouldn't do that. And then there are things where you're kind of like, you're kind of going a little bit too far with the joke. So those of you who haven't watched the film, we apologize now for not putting the spoiler alert at the beginning, but this movie came out 35 years ago.
You had your chance.
So I find it odd that the one kid that they refer to as Fat Kid the entire movie has decided to pre-pack his food for the evening. And he had pizza in an aluminum foil.
I love it.
It's weird for so many reasons. One, it's like they had backpacks. They had stuff they could carry with them.
That was exactly what I was going to say. Like if it was in a backpack. This
motherfucker had a slice of pizza in an aluminum foil that saved his life.
It's kind of great when you put it that way.
It's just so
like carrying it in his jacket. Like what?
He's like, oh, that's my emergency pizza.
He's like Batman. That's like the shark repellent. He's got vampire repellent with him. Like, what if this pizza didn't have garlic, so it didn't do anything? You know? Oh, thank God I put garlic on the pizza this time. And how greasy are his pockets?
They do a shot going back to the pizza place. It's like, this is order 31. They sent it back because it had extra garlic. Oh, I got it mixed up with the other one where they said specifically no garlic.
Now the kid is dead. Way to go, dead kid.
All right.
No, that was one of the funniest. Like, I didn't want that to make sense. It was so great as is. I was like, of course he's got pizza in his pocket. Why wouldn't he?
Now, there's part of me that sits here and I criticize it. But then part of me is thinking like, well, fuck, that's a pretty good idea.
Start doing that at conventions. When you see me and I'm hungry. My emergency pizza. This one didn't cost me $7 a slice.
Oh my God.
That was really the cost of pizza in Salt Lake. I didn't just make that up. But anyway.
I believe you.
And then the line was like 2 miles long, and I'm just like, "Fuck you!" Because now
like
you have
the soda
to eat
line.
these 2 slices, you know. Yeah. Wild Bills, Jesus, that line's ridiculous. Anyway, if you go to conventions, try to bring your own snacks. That's what we're saying. Emergency pizza in the pockets. Yes.
Now, again, as an adult, I see this movie in a different light, and it's probably one of the funniest parts of the movie. Just because of how absurd it is. So Dracula's apparently pissed off at this point.
I was hoping that's where we were going. All right, so Dracula
is pissed at this moment in the movie. And so he decides to take out a bundle of dynamite.
Well, that's very a part of Dracula lore, I'm sure. So
he takes out a bundle of dynamite like it's a Warner Brothers cartoon. He lights it and then throws it at their treehouse.
And their parents are like, "Oh man,
those kids." There's like no reaction from the mom. The mom, by the way, who has all of her bags packed and stacked by the door.
I was going to say, this just makes her escape easier. She can be like, "Was Mom in the treehouse when it exploded?" You know.
Find out in Monster Squad 2.
No, I love how, number one, this is so dark. Like, Dracula legitimately thinks they're in the treehouse. He didn't go blow up their treehouse to be like, "I blew up your headquarters, motherfucker." No, he thinks they're in there. He's trying to kill them. And then, Mom not hardly reacting. I mean, she's like, "Oh my God, fire." But that's it. Like, she doesn't know where these kids are. She has no idea. She hasn't been paying attention to them at all. And then just the insanity of Dad flying up in the police car the way he does. And it does like that drift and turn. And I'm like, right. I don't believe you can drive like that at all. You know, at least at that point, the black guy should have gotten out of the driver's seat. That would have been better. But no, this is where the black guy meets his unfortunate death that I did not see coming. Why? Because Dracula throws more dynamite into the police car. I guess he keeps it in like a similar pocket to the emergency pizza. So they really had a thing with people pulling things out of their pockets. And very strange.
You know, he's got some hidden compartments on that cape, so.
I really would have liked to see my face when the black guy died. I was so stunned. I was like, what? What do you mean they killed him? Doesn't make any sense. Craziness.
This is a question I started to look at, and then it was just kind of like, no, I'm not exaggerating. Nope, I'm not imagining this. So I just want to know, how much money did Adidas pay to be featured in this movie?
Oh, man. So much.
I mean, it's the kid's shoes. He's got the Adidas jacket. And then Frankenstein, I think, throws somebody into a boxes upon boxes of Adidas shoes. I mean, between them and Burger King, they probably paid for the movie.
I love the Burger King one because they're like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's like right next to that Burger King. Like they say it out loud and then like it's perfectly framed. And I was like, that is some major product placement. But like you worked really hard to point it out loudly to us as well. I loved that. It reminds me of Wayne's World when Garth does some people just do things for money and that's just really sad. You know,
Right.
He's like all decked out in like Pepsi and Dorito shit. I love that.
I did enjoy Dracula's fight scene with the cops.
It's so good because he never even breaks where he's looking.
No,
that was just awesome.
I mean, this was definitely for him. Yeah, but that whole thing, I mean, going back to the Virgin, the whole thing about, she's 5. So it still keeps it as like, oh, of course, this 5-year-old child didn't have sex. So it I don't know. It was this kind of funny little joke to have in, but it's also like, all right, let's go ahead and get this kid to read some German for you.
She does very well with it.
And then, of course, we have the Dr. Van Helsing making his return in more of a Van Helsing motherfucker way than we possibly expected, where he just grabs Dracula into the void and they're supposed to be
gives
gone.
A thumbs up.
Yeah, which is weird.
It's really weird.
Like,
I had
why
this
is
moment
Van
where I was
Helsing
like,
good?
who the fuck is that? And then it clicked for me and I was like, oh, okay. But yeah.
Like, here you go, buddy. Here's something we don't use in my time, but I know you use in yours. Maybe they're observing from the void. Maybe that's what it is.
I didn't even consider that. That's a great point.
All right.
That was, they used to say fuck you that way. So he was like, fuck you, I got him,
You thought you were helping. And then I had to laugh at this. I didn't laugh at it the first time because I didn't get the joke. Or, I mean, if it was intentional or not. But when the army shows up out of nowhere, right? They show up late and they're like, yeah, we're here. We're here to help Eugene. He said there were some monsters. And I'm thinking to myself in several different ways. One, the army showed up late. Ha 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 ha. That's a cool joke. Then the other one was, oh man, we really missed out on this moment where we could have had like a tank blow up the creature, or somebody with a flamethrower gets the mummy. But then there's other part of me that's thinking like, is this a situation where there are more monsters in the world that they don't know about outside of this moment? And the army knows that there's stuff everywhere else on in the world and, has the monsters deal with, because they came with enough armament to take down a monster. So maybe they thought it was one of the ones that was under their supervision that it escaped at that point.
I thought that was weird. Like, I don't know. What a weird thing to put into the movie. The army showing up late.
Wait, you want to get weird?
Yes.
Okay. The fucking theme song for this movie.
I paused because I really thought you were going to go full Bruce Wayne on me. But
no, that's not on that one.
You were saying?
But no, it's just, this was another thing that was about like the 80s and early 90s where it's like, oh, everything hip hop is cool. And when they hit the Monster Squad theme song, I started laughing. I was like, this is the Kids Bop version of a Kids Bop song about this movie. And I couldn't shake it. I was like, oh my God, this is bad, but this is 80s. This is what it was like. You had your movie and it's supposed to be geared towards kids. It was typically, rock and then hip hop. But again, it's funny to see this movie that goes that route of like, it never has a hip hop bone in its body the entire film. But I mean, besides, they killed the one black detective.
I was going to make that comment, but I figured you were going there, so I just waited. Of course it doesn't. They killed the black guy. All in all, I fucking loved this movie. Like, I don't know why I haven't been watching this every single year. It was so much better than I expected it to be. It held up really well. It had great jokes that throw back to the originals, as well as just making it its own. And that's so impressive and so hard to find today. I don't know. It's I heard that a movie came out recently that was based on a TV show from the 60s, and it did not do the same thing. And I'll fight anyone who says it did. Anyway.
I'm staying out of that argument. I don't care. I like the Munsters. And I've watched House of a Thousand Corpses.
There you go.
All right, I guess we should get to movie recommendations then.
Movie Rex. Ooh, yes. We should get like some music for that, like Movie Rex. I don't know, something.
All right. Hello, Fiverr.
We'll get a sponsor. We'll like like maybe like Blue Chew, and it'll be like our stiff recommendations of the week or something. Anyway. So if I was going with my typical double feature on this, I don't even know, man. There's so many. Like something like Goonies, I think would play good with this, but it doesn't have that horror aspect to it. I didn't prepare for this. I'm trying to do this off the top of my head, but that was the first thing in my head. Like, I think they'd be fun to watch together, but they're very different movies, I don't know. Maybe I got fucking nothing. I don't even know. You give me 200 of them, and then I'll come back with something.
No. See, the thing is, I had Goonies on my list, but I put a star next to it initially because I'm like, that's gonna be my first one. If I just say, oh, if I were to do double feature, it'd be this. I say that's the one. That's the one to do.
Well, then we'll pretend I was way more confident about this. The confidence you get from Blue Chew. All right, go ahead. Blue Chew owes me money now, even though they don't know it yet. Yes.
All right. Don's list is brought to you by BMW. BMW will be delivering a new BMW i8 to Don today. Maybe. All right. So
talk about confidence.
Oh. Hey, man, shoot for the stars. So the first one I would start off with is Lost Boys.
Yeah.
Fright Night.
I knew you were going to say that because you mentioned it earlier. So.
Yeah. So Transylvania 65000, House, Silver Bullet, one of my favorites, Cat's Eye. This next one, I would say either one, Critters or Munchies.
Ooh.
Chud, the Creepshow movies, Return of the Living Dead, Gremlins, The Stuff, Maximum Overdrive, Tales from the Dark Side, and then I was going to say TV series, but it's not. It was a movie and then a TV series, but both would follow. The movie or TV series, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the Hotel Transylvania series, and I did not know this existed, but there is a short film or documentary called Wolfman's Got Nards.
Yeah.
So I want to check that one out just from reading the summary of what was going on there.
As you were talking, I actually thought of a double feature I would do, but I don't know that I would suggest it to anyone else because I seem to be the only person that likes this movie. But have you ever seen Saturday the 14th?
I've seen it. Because
I think it would be fantastic with this because they both have that element of what the fuck am I watching while also kind of hitting things, So I just think they'd be fun together. But that would be brought to you by THC because I think that would be a very important addition to the conversation. Anyways.
All right, James, where can people find you?
Oh shit, I hope they don't. You know where they can't find me? In my booth at Salt Lake Comic-Con, apparently. Salt Lake FanX, apparently. Nobody came. I didn't sell any books. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at James Sabata or Facebook, but I don't suggest that. I would stick with Twitter. If you want to buy my books, I feel sorry for you. You can find them on Amazon, I guess. What about you, Don?
Oh, I am everywhere.
J-Date?
No.
Farmers Only?
No, not that either. I gave those up. So you can find me on Twitter at Don Guillory, TikTok, Token Black Guide. Then there's the website, but you can also the website www.donaldrguillory.com, or you can go to the Amazon pages and things like that. Buy our books, buy us coffee.
That would help out. Yeah.
Free hugs.
Bring me Red Bull. Red Bull.
Oh, that'll definitely do it.
Red Bull, Monster, Blue Chew, whatever you got.
I'm gonna end up getting the wrong sponsor there, sir.
I'm gonna hit them up and be like, "Hey, come sponsor our show," and they'll be the only ones who don't know it's a joke.
It's not
Think
a joke.
about it, the horror stiffs. I mean, I think we can make this work.
I say we do it.
All right. I suppose we'll wrap this up. So, as always, I am James Sabata.
And I am Don Guillory.
And we'll see you back here next week here at the Necronoma.com.